Growth of nationalism. Introduction. One of the most distinguishing features of the second half of the 19th century was the birth of national awakening in India. It originated from the concept of nationalism and right of self-determination initiated by the French Revolution, the socio-religious reform movements in India, as an offshoot of modernization introduced by the British in India, and as a reaction of the Indians to the British colonial policies. The political awareness generated by these trends gave birth to various political associations. This trend culminated in the establishment of the Indian National Congress in 1885, which marked the formal beginning of the organized national movement in India. In this chapter, we shall learn about factors leading to the growth of nationalism, like economic exploitation, repressive colonial policies, socio-religious reform, contribution of Raja Ram Mohan Roy and Jyotiba Phule, and role of the press. Foundation of the Indian National Congress, the Indian National Association, Surendranath Banerjee, and the East India Association, Dadabhai Naoroji, as precursors. Immediate objectives of the Indian National Congress, the first two sessions and their presidents. Factors promoting growth of nationalism. Nationalism refers to the feeling of oneness and common consciousness that emerges when people living in a common territory share the same historical, political, and cultural background, have the same language, cultural values, and consider themselves as one nation. Though India had a long history going back to many centuries, it was never a one nation and comprised many kingdoms. There were times when vast portions of the Indian subcontinent came under the rule of one empire. But the loyalty of the people was towards a particular king or kingdom. The modern feeling of nationalism was lacking among them. It emerged during the British rule, mainly as a reaction to the British rule and the clash of interests of the Indian people with those of the British. As we have read in the previous chapter, Indians resisted the British rule from its very beginning. But this resistance was localized and scattered. It was undertaken by the deposed chieftains, their descendants and relations, zamindars, ex-soldiers, and officials of the Indian states. The culmination of traditional opposition to British rule came with the First War of Independence. Although it failed to achieve its objectives, it inspired the Indians to resist the foreign power and make a determined struggle for the country's freedom. Thus, the very nature of the foreign rule resulted in nationalistic sentiments rising among the Indians and produced conditions conducive for the rise and growth of a powerful national movement. The second half of the 19th century witnessed the emergence of national political consciousness and strong feeling of nationalism. There were many factors which contributed to the growth of nationalism in India. These included the following. 1. Economic exploitation. There were many factors that aroused opposition to British rule. Economic exploitation was the most important among them. The Indians realized that the general aim of the British policies in India was to promote their own interests at the cost of welfare of Indians. The economic discontent of different sections of society was as follows. First, the peasants. They were the main victims of British colonial policies. The government took away a large part of their produce in the form of land revenue and other taxes. These exorbitant taxes led the peasants into the clutches of landlords and money-lenders. Second, the artisans and craftsmen. The British economic policies were against the interests of Indian trade and industry. The English East India Company used its political power to destroy Indian handicrafts and industry. India became source of raw materials for the industries of Britain and a market for its finished products. This policy crippled the artisans and the craftsmen as they were devoid of their sources of livelihood. Third, the working class. The growth of modern industries led to the birth of a new social class in India, the working class. They were exploited by the factory owners, who were generally Englishmen. Although they formed a small section of the population, they represented a new social outlook. Their outlook and interests were very broad, covering whole of India, though their factories were located in cities. All these factors made their political thinking far more significant than their numerical strength. Fourth, the educated Indians. The only employment available to the educated Indians was government service, in which competition was high and chances of promotions were bleak. They had hoped that British capitalism would help to develop India's productive forces as it had done for Britain. Instead, they found that British policies were keeping India economically backward. Thus, all sections of the society felt that their economic salvation lay in freeing themselves from the British rule. To achieve this objective, the Indian people had to come together on a national platform. In the process, the spirit of nationalism received a powerful stimulus. 2. Repressive colonial policies. The nature of the British colonial rule over India helped the growth of national sentiment among the Indians. The British had conquered India to promote their own interests and therefore followed such repressive policies so as to make India subservient to the needs of Britain. These policies became the major barrier to India's economic, social, cultural, intellectual and political development. Some of these repressive policies, especially those followed by Lord Lytton, Viceroy of India from 1876 to 1880, acted as a catalyst for the growth of nationalist movement in India. These included the following policies. First, Lord Lytton organized a Grand Delhi Darbar in 1877 to proclaim Queen Victoria as the Empress of India. Lakhs of rupees were spent on the event, but nothing was done for Indians who were in the grip of a famine. Second, Lord Lytton introduced the Vernacular Press Act in 1878 and Indian Arms Act 1878. The Vernacular Press Act forbade vernacular papers to publish any material that might excite feelings of dissatisfaction against the British government. This act was not applicable to English newspapers. In 1882, this act was repealed by Lord Ripon. The Indian Arms Act of 1878 made it a criminal offence for Indians to carry arms without licence. This act was not applicable to the British. Third, the maximum age limit for the Indian Civil Service examination was reduced from 21 to 19 years, thus making it difficult for the Indians to compete for it. Fourth, the import duties on British textiles was removed. It proved harmful for the Indian industry. Fifth, Sir C.P. Ilbert, the law member of the Viceroy's Council, prepared a bill popularly known as the Ilbert Bill in 1883. The bill, which was introduced by the Viceroy, Lord Ripon, sought to abolish judicial disqualification based on race distinctions. This was resented by the British, and they started a defence association to defend their special privileges. This reaction provoked counter-agitation by educated Indians. The government ultimately withdrew the bill and enacted a more moderate measure which vested the power of trying Europeans to a session judge and a district magistrate who might be an Indian. This bill made it clear to the Indians that justice and fair play could not be expected where the interests of the European community were involved. So, these repressive policies of the British provided a stimulus to political agitation and quickened the pace of Indian nationalism. 3. Socio-religious reform movements. The socio-religious reform movements of the 19th century were great pioneers of Indian nationalism. The impact of Western education, which led to a rational, humanitarian and scientific approach to life, made the educated Indians realize the need to reform their religion and society. They felt that the path to progress lay in the acceptance of the best of the East and the West. The result was the birth of socio-religious reform movements touching almost every segment of Indian society. In the social sphere, these movements worked for the abolition of caste system, child marriage, dowry system, parda system, sati, and infanticide. They launched a crusade against social and legal inequalities. In the religious sphere, these reform movements combated religious superstitions, attacked idolatry, polytheism, and hereditary priesthood. These movements fought for individual liberty and social equality. Prominent reform movements were Brahmo Samaj, founded by Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Arya Samaj, founded by Swami Dayanand Saraswati, Ramakrishna Mission, founded by Swami Vivekananda, and Satya Shodhak Samaj, founded by Jyotiba Phule. Raja Ram Mohan Roy. Raja Ram Mohan Roy was one of the greatest social and religious reformers of the 19th century. He wanted to do away with the religious and social evils which were prevalent in Bengal at that time. In 1828, he founded the Brahmo Sabha, which was later renamed Brahmo Samaj. The Brahmo Samaj believed in monotheism, or worship of one God. It condemned idol worship and laid emphasis on prayer, meditation, charity, morality, and strengthening the bonds of unity between men of all religions and creeds. Ram Mohan Roy was against the rigidity of the caste system. He started a campaign for the abolition of sati and parda system, condemned polygamy, discouraged child marriages, and advocated the rights of widows to remarry. It was because of the efforts made by Ram Mohan Roy that William Bentinck, the Governor-General of India, passed a law in 1829 making the practice of sati illegal and punishable by law. He also protested against restrictions on the freedom of press. In the words of Rabindranath Tagore, Raja Ram Mohan Roy inaugurated the modern age in India. He was the father of Indian Renaissance and the prophet of Indian nationalism. Jyotiba Phule. Jyotiba Phule was an urban educated member of a so-called low caste. His education and personal experiences had made him critical of Hindu religion and customs. In 1854, he established a school for untouchables and started a private orphanage for the widows. He wanted to liberate the depressed classes and make them aware of their rights by educating them. He founded the Satya Shodhak Samaj in 1873 with the aim of securing social justice for the weaker sections of society. He pioneered the widow remarriage movement in Maharashtra and worked for the education of women. The socio-religious reform movements contributed to the onset of Indian nationalism in the following ways. First, Swami Dayanand and Swami Vivekananda proclaimed the superiority of Indian culture and civilization. Second, the reformers condemned untouchability and the caste system. The ideas of brotherhood and equality attracted the so-called lower castes. Third, the reformers taught people not to ignore the importance of women who could participate in the national movement. Fourth, they protested against the British domination in India. Swami Dayanand Saraswati was the first to use the word Swaraj and to raise the slogan, India for the Indians. Role of the press. Large number of newspapers were started in the later half of the 19th century. Some of the prominent newspapers were the Amrit Bazar Patrika, the Bengali, the Tribune, the Pioneer, the Times of India, the Hindu, and the Statesman in English. Many other newspapers and magazines in the vernacular languages were also brought out. These newspapers played a significant role in developing a strong national sentiment among the Indians. It did so in the following manner. First, it was through the press that the message of patriotism and modern liberal ideals of liberty, freedom, equality, home rule, and independence spread among the people. Second, the press carried on daily criticism of the unjust policies of the British government in India and exposed the true nature of British rule in India. Third, It made possible the exchange of views among different social groups from different parts of the country and organizing political movements. Fourth, it made Indians aware of what was happening in the world. This awareness helped them to understand the political and social development of the outside world and shape their own policies and programs. Precursors of the Indian National Congress. Raja Ram Mohan Roy was the pioneer of political movement in India. He demanded liberty of the press, appointment of Indians in civil courts and other higher posts, codification of laws, etc. The first political association to be started in India was the Landholders' Society in Kolkata in 1838. Many public associations were started in different parts of India like Bengal British India Society, British Indian Association, East India Association, London Indian Society, and Indian Association. These associations served as a base for the formation of the Congress, an all-India political organization. The most prominent among these associations were the following. 1. East India Association. The East India Association was founded in London in 1866 by Dadabhai Naoroji. The association provided information on all Indian subjects to British citizens and members of Parliament. It voiced the grievances of Indians and suggested remedial measures. Dadabhai Naoroji, the grand old man of India, was of the opinion that the British were basically just and good. He wanted to place the true state of affairs in India before the people of England so that the problems of the Indians may be resolved. The association had its branches in Mumbai, Kolkata, and Chennai. 2. Indian Association, 1876. The Indian Association was meant to be an all-India movement. It was headed by Surendranath Banerjee. The association had lawyers, professionals, and educated middle class as its members. This association had branches in Bengal as well as in towns outside Bengal. The objectives of the Indian Association included: first, creation of a strong body of public opinion. Second, integration of Indian people on the basis of common political interests. Third, promotion of friendly relations between Hindus and Muslims. And fourth, mass participation in public movements. Achievements of Indian Association. It launched agitations against oppressive acts such as the License Act, the Arms Act, and the Vernacular Press Act, and against lowering the age limit from 21 to 19 years for the ICS examination. It also took up the cause of the workers on the British-owned plantations. However, the association failed to attain an all-India character. 3. Indian National Conference, 1883. In 1883, Surendranath Banerjee convened the All India National Conference at Kolkata. It was a provincial organization. It offered a model to the Indian National Congress, which was formed 2 years later. The National Conference held its second session in December 1885 in Kolkata. During the same period, the Indian National Congress held its session in Mumbai. Both these bodies served the same purpose, that is, to work for the welfare of Indians. So, the National Conference merged with the Indian National Congress in December 1886. Formation of the Indian National Congress. Various political organizations mentioned earlier were local in character. However, their activities had prepared the ground for the creation of an all-India political association. While the Indian leaders like Surendranath Banerjee, Dadabhai Naoroji, Firoz Shah Mehta, Badruddin Tayabji, and Justice Ranade were moving towards the formation of an all-India political body. Luckily for them, help in this direction came from a strange source. That is, from A.O. Hume, a retired British member of the Indian Civil Service. He wanted to set up an organization that would draw the government's attention to the administrative drawbacks and suggest means to rectify them. Hume wrote an open letter to the graduates of the Calcutta University asking them to dedicate themselves to the service of the people by forming a union to organize a well-defined course of action. This appeal produced the desired result. Formation of the Indian National Congress. In 1884, Hume, in consultation with the Indian leaders, laid the foundation of Indian National Union. The Conference of the Representatives of different parts of India was convened by the Union at Pune on December 25, 1885. Plague broke out in Pune at that point of time. So, the meeting of the Union was held at Gokuldas Tejpal Sanskrit College, Mumbai, from December 28 to 31st, 1885, under the presidentship of Bomesh Chandra Banerjee. It was attended by 72 delegates. On the suggestion of Dadabhai Naoroji, the name of the Union was changed to the Indian National Congress. Thus, the foundation of the Indian National Congress was laid on December 28, 1885. The Viceroy, Lord Dufferin, favoured the formation of the Congress because he wanted it to act as a safety valve for popular discontent, thereby safeguarding the British interest in India. The Congress stood for the hopes and aspirations of the people of India, who accepted its leadership in launching the freedom movement. It achieved the goal of freedom in 1947. Aims of the Indian National Congress. In his presidential address at the first session of the Indian National Congress, W.C. Banerjee declared the following as the aims of the Indian National Congress. First, to promote friendly relations between nationalist political workers from different parts of the country. Second, to develop and consolidate the feelings of national unity, irrespective of caste, religion, or province. Third, to formulate popular demands and present them before the government. Fourth, to train and organize public opinion in the country. The Congress held its sessions every year in December to chalk out programs to achieve its aims. Changes were made in the above-mentioned aims of the Congress from time to time, according to the changed circumstances. Sessions of the Congress. The first session of the Congress under the presidentship of W.C. Banerjee was attended by 72 delegates from all parts of India, including such eminent persons as Dadabhai Naoroji, K.T. Telang, Firoz Shah Mehta, Badruddin Tayabji, G. Subramanya Iyer, Ananda Charlu, N.G. Chandavarkar, and Justice Rande. The second session of 1886 was held at Kolkata under the presidentship of Dadabhai Naoroji. Some of the delegates were received by Lord Dufferin as distinguished visitors to the capital. Thereafter, the National Congress met every year in December in different parts of the country, and the number of its delegates soon increased to thousands. The Surat session, which was the 23rd session of the Congress, was held in 1907 under the presidentship of Ras Bihari Ghosh. There was a dispute between the early nationalists and the assertive nationalists of the Congress regarding the methods of agitation in Bengal after its partition. There was a split in the Congress. The assertive group was excluded from the Congress nearly for a decade. It was only in 1916 that the two wings of the Congress were united at the Lucknow session. Important resolutions at sessions of the Congress. At the 23rd session at Surat in 1907, resolution was passed, split between the two wings. 26th session at Kolkata in 1911. Resolution passed. The national anthem, Jana Gana Mana, was sung for the first time. 31st session at Lucknow in 1916. Joint session with the Muslim League and signing of Lucknow Pact. 39th session at Belgaum in 1924. Mahatma Gandhi presided over this session. 44th session at Lahore. In 1929, declaration of Purna Swaraj and to launch civil disobedience movement. 51st session at Haripura in 1938. Subhash Chandra Bose was elected as the president. The sessions of the Indian National Congress. First session in 1885 at Mumbai, presided by W.C. Banerjee. Second session in 1886 at Kolkata, presided by Dadabhai Naoroji. 3rd session in 1887 at Chennai, presided by Badruddin Tayyabji. 4th session in 1888 at Allahabad, presided by George Yule. 5th session in 1889 at Mumbai, presided by William Wedderburn. 6th session in 1890 at Kolkata, presided by Firoz Shah Mehta. 7th session in 1891 at Nagpur, presided by P. Anand Charlu. 8th session in 1892 at Allahabad, presided by W. C. Banerjee. 9th session in 1893 at Lahore, presided by Dadabhai Naoroji. 10th session in 1894 at Chennai, presided by Alfred Webb. 11th session in 1895 at Pune, presided by Surendranath Banerjee. 12th session in 1896 at Kolkata, presided by Rahimtullah Sayani. 13th session in 1897 at Amravati, presided by Shankaran Nair. 14th session in 1898 at Chennai, presided by Anand Mohan Bose. 15th session in 1899 at Lucknow, presided by Romesh Chandar Dutt. 16th session in 1900 at Lahore, presided by N. G. Chandavarkar. 17th session in 1901 at Kolkata, presided by Dinsha Edalji Vacha. 18th session in 1902 at Ahmedabad, presided by Surendranath Banerjee. 19th session in 1903 at Chennai, presided by Lal Mohan Ghosh. 20th session in 1904 at Mumbai, presided by Sir Henry Cotton. 21st century in 1905 at Varanasi, presided by Gopal Krishna Gokhale. 22nd session in 1906, Kolkata, presided by Dadabhai Naoroji. The sessions of the Indian National Congress. 23rd session in 1907 at Surat, presided by Rasbihari Ghosh. 23rd session in 1908 at Chennai, presided by Rasbihari Ghosh. 24th session in 1909 at Lahore, presided by Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya. 25th session in 1910 at Allahabad, presided by William Wedderburn. 26th session in 1911 at Kolkata, presided by Bishan Narayan Dar. 27th session in 1912 at Banikpur, presided by R. N. Mudholkar. 28th session in 1913 at Karachi, presided by Nawab Sayyid Muhammad. 29th session in 1914 at Chennai, presided by Bhupinder Nath. 30th session in 1915 at Mumbai, presided by Satyendra Prasad Sinha. 31st session in 1916 at Lucknow, presided by Ambika Charan Mazumdar. 32nd session in 1917 at Kolkata, presided by Mrs. Annie Besant. Special session in 1918 in Mumbai, presided by Sayyid Hassan Imam. 33rd session in 1918 Delhi, presided by Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya. 34th session in 1919 held at Amritsar, presided by Pandit Motilal Nehru. Special session in 1920 at Kolkata, presided by Lala Lajpat Rai. 35th session in 1920 at Nagpur, presided by C. Vijay Raghavacharya. 36th session in 1921 held at Ahmedabad, presided by Hakim Ajmal Khan. 37th session held in 1922 at Gaya, presided by C.R. Das. Special session held in 1923 at Delhi, presided by Abdul Kalam Azad. 38th session in 1923 at Kakinanda, presided by Muhammad Ali. 39th session in 1924 at Belgaum, presided by Mahatma Gandhi. 40th session in 1925 at Kanpur, presided by Mrs. Sarojini Naidu. 41st session in 1926 at Guwahati, presided by S. Srinivas Iyengar. 42nd session in 1927 at Chennai, presided by Dr. M. A. Ansari. 43rd session in 1928 at Kolkata, presided by Pandit Motilal Nehru. 44th session in 1929 at Lahore, presided by Jawaharlal Nehru. 45th session in 1931 at Karachi, presided by Vallabhbhai Patel. 46th session in 1932 at Delhi, presided by Seth Ranchhod Lal Amrit Lal. 47th session in 1933 at Kolkata, presided by Nellie Sen Gupta. 48th session in 1934 Mumbai, presided by Dr. Rajendra Prasad. 49th session in April 1936 at Lucknow, presided by Jawaharlal Nehru. 50th session in December 1936 at Faizpur, presided by Jawaharlal Nehru. 51st session in 1938 at Haripura, presided by Subhash Chandra Bose. 52nd session in 1939 at Tripuri, presided by Subhash Chandra Bose. 53rd session in 1940 at Ramgarh, presided by Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad. 54th session in 1946 at Meerut, presided by J.B. Kripalani.